the southern edge of Michigan's Upper Peninsula is St. Ignace, a mission founded on the Mackinac Straits, which connect Lake Superior to Lake Huron. The two lakes are attached on the northern side of the peninsula by the St. Mary's River, along which are located the cities of Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. In the latter is located what is by some accounts the third oldest parish in the United States, Holy Name of Mary Catholic Church, known historically, like the river, as St. Mary's. It's one of the cradles of Catholicism in the state of Michigan.
God bless America.
God love you. I want these to be my first words of greeting to you. They will be the concluding words on each broadcast.
I am not the Catholic candidate for president. I am the Democratic Party's candidate for president.
Annuncio optis Gaudium Magnum. Habemus papam.
You've embarked on a Catholic history trek.
As the name Sault Ste. Marie suggests, this area was part of New France, that is, much of what is now Canada and the American Great Lakes region. Sault is French for rapids or falls. The Falls of St. Mary were in the 1850s converted into locks so that ships could move more easily between the lakes. The Sault Locks are a popular tourist site today. The first missionaries in the region were French Recollects, a branch of the Franciscan order. Jesuits soon replaced the Recollects as the principal missionaries, and they served the region for 2 centuries. Among the early Jesuits was the North American martyr St. Isaac Jogues, who, along with his companion Charles Rambaud, bestowed the locality's Marian nomenclature. The famous Jesuit missionary Jacques Marquette also worked here. He established the first permanent mission in 1668, which is considered the founding date of St. Mary's Parish. The original chapel was destroyed by fire, but a new and more elaborate one was built in 1671 at the initiative of Father Gabriel Druletz, who was the Jesuit in charge of the mission at that time. According to the pioneer Catholic historian John Gilmary Shea, in his 1886 History of the Church in the U.S., the dignity of this Sault Ste. Marie Church provoked some envy among the natives of Wisconsin, at whose prompting the Jesuits therefore built another chapel near Green Bay. In 1701, the explorer Antoine Cadillac built Fort Pontchartrain on what is now the site of Detroit and established a Catholic mission there. Most of the natives served by the Jesuit missions in the north migrated to the Detroit area, leading to the decline of the northern missions, including St. Mary's at Sault Ste. Marie. The area's Catholic presence was further depressed when the British took control of Canada after the French and Indian War in the 1760s. I couldn't locate a clear record on this, but evidently at some point in the 1700s, the chapel in Sault Ste. Marie was destroyed or fell into disrepair and was not rebuilt. In 1820, a few decades into the American period, Sault Ste. Marie was a humble settlement with just 6 families. The U.S. Army established a military post there in the 1820s, which led to some immigration by Irish Catholics. The area was part of the vast Diocese of Cincinnati at this time, and Bishop Edward Fenwick visited Sault Ste. Marie in 1830. From that visit, we know there was no church in the town at that point. Mass was said in a private residence. The Italian Dominican Venerable Samuel Massacelli visited the town occasionally during the 1830s to minister to the Catholics there, but the availability of the sacraments was still sporadic. Things improved with the creation of the Diocese of Detroit in 1833. A Redemptorist priest, Father Francis Hatcher, was assigned to the area, and he built a small log chapel when he arrived in 1834. This marked the beginning of the modern era of St. Mary's Parish. Hatcher's successor, Father Francis Pierce, replaced the old church with a larger wooden church in the late 1830s. In 1845, Jesuits returned to the parish after an absence of 140 years. There were at this time 400 Catholics in the city, some of them indigenous people, but mostly fur merchants or loggers of French descent. The community remained a small one throughout the early American period, but the population of the territory overall continued to grow. In 1837, after a territorial dispute with its southern neighbor, Michigan became the 26th state in the Union. Finally, in 1853, a Vicariate Apostolic of Upper Michigan was created, and the Slovenian missionary, Venerable Frederick Bariga, became the first bishop. In 1857, the vicariate became a diocese, and Sault Ste. Marie, the historic heart of mission territory, became the see city. The clapboard church of St. Mary's, built by Father Piers, thus became a cathedral. It was one of only 3 churches in the diocese at that point. Beriga, a citizen of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, had studied in Vienna, where he came under the tutelage of the aged Redemptorist reformer St. Clement Hofbauer. Inspired by reading an account by the famous Detroit priest Father Gabriel Richard, Beriga came to the U.S. to be a missionary in the Great Lakes region. Beriga, who well earned the moniker the Snowshoe Priest, became a celebrated evangelist among the Ojibwa and Ottawa tribes. In one incident in 1852, the year before he was named Vicar Apostolic, in the course of making a sick call, he walked for 24 consecutive hours through a snowstorm, reluctant to stop and rest for fear of falling asleep and dying of exposure. After his consecration in Cincinnati, Beriga returned to Sault Ste. Marie and built his episcopal residence, a humble wooden house, a block from his equally humble cathedral. Beriga's house has been preserved and is located among other historic houses in the city's waterfront district. Jesuit priests John Minet and August Kohler were in charge of St. Mary's at the time of the diocese's creation. They soon left the city to join the Jesuit missions in Canada, leaving the historic cathedral parish to the ministry of diocesan priests for a short period. But Jesuits returned once again after a few years. The last Jesuit, William Gagnier, departed in 1937 after a 42-year stint serving both the Sioux parish and the surrounding Indian missions. Bishop Beriga initiated a legal action with the U.S. government to try to solidify the church's title to the land on which St. Mary's was built, on the basis of the earlier Catholic claims from the French period. Beriga died before the issue was settled, but when the bishop passed to his eternal reward in 1868, it was not in Sault Ste. Marie, it was in the new episcopal city of Marquette. In the years that followed the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie's creation, much greater population growth occurred in the western part of the peninsula, where copper and other mining operations flourished. In 1865, the diocese was formally moved to Marquette, though it was still called the Diocese of Sault Ste. Marie and Marquette until 1937, when it became simply the Diocese of Marquette, which it remains today. But of course, the parish of St. Mary's survived. In 1880, it won title to its land, and this provided the stimulus to erect a new, larger brick church, which went up in 1881. It was officially dedicated as the Church of the Holy Name of Mary, but it is colloquially referred to as St. Mary's. This, the 5th building in the parish's history, is the one you'll see today if you visit Sault Ste. Marie. Although it never served as a cathedral, the Bishop of Marquette affords it the honorific title of pro-cathedral in recognition of the parish's historic role. St. Mary's continued to be the only church in the city until 1940. Parishioners built a separate bell tower in 1968. This was transferred in 1981 to the local historical society, which operates it as a museum and observation deck for the Sioux Locks and their scenic surroundings. The church was renovated and rededicated in 1987, and further work in 1996 restored the interior to its original style. Reflecting its heritage, the contemporary parish contains a mixture of members of French, Irish, Italian, and Ojibwa descent. It has on display some items connected to Bishop Beriga, including some prayer books, his episcopal chair, and naturally, his snowshoes. Gloria Patri et Filio et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper et in saecula saeculorum. Amen.
Thank you for listening to Catholic History Trek. You can reach us at catholichistorytrek@gmail.com.